You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm Weston Williams, joined by Oliver Camacho. All right, this week, Lyric Opera of Chicago has announced their 26-27 season, and we'll break down the stats, report who's active on the roster, and ask the all-important question, will luck be a lady at the Lyric next year? And then, friend of the show, Randall Scotting, returns to the OBS to take a free throw on Nicolò Grimaldi, the castrato who conquered the opera world under the stage name Nicolini. His latest album, Divine Impresario, is now available to conquer your earholes. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, Timothée Chalamet may have been doing the Royal Ballet and Opera a favor, and Jackie Chan takes a shot at the OBS Hall of Fame. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, click follow on Apple Podcasts, hit the plus sign. You can also stream episodes of OBS every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central at amplisoundsradio.com. Email us your hot takes by writing to mailbag@operaboxscore.com or upload a voice memo using the You Got Something to Say tab on our website, operaboxscore.com. However you contribute, you'll get an OBS beer coaster, an OBS lapel pin, and a #1 OBS fan foam finger just for sharing your own hot take. And without further ado, Oliver Camacho, it's so nice to see you after 2 weeks.
Well, what you missed, since you probably were driving back from New York while this was happening, was the finale of the Monte Carlo Masters.
Oh, thank God I missed it.
The first the major clay court tournament of the year, and a sort of preview of what might happen this year as the clay court season shapes up. Both Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, the world number 2 and world number 1, got through to the final with no problems and met in the final as was expected. And Jannik Sinner is in incredible form, and I'm a little bit scared that he might complete the career Grand Slam this year by winning the French. I mean, I'd be happy if he did because he's a really great player. He's just a little bit emotionless, and Carlos Alcaraz just is so emotion on his sleeve, And
you want some more fire in your tennis. I get it.
Yeah, and they've become really good friends. It's almost going a little heated rivalry, but Carlos is so supportive, and it's so adorable to see them just like hug after the match and talk to each other and have their arms wrapped around each other, shoulder to shoulder. It's like they really are friends, and they really sort of understand the moment that they're in, that they are 1 and 2, and the competition is so far behind them. Jannik Sinner with this win did become world number 1, but we are just at the beginning of the season, so I expect them to go back and forth between being 1 and 2. But it was a pretty decisive win Jannik Sinner had over Carlos, and I'm of course cheering for Carlos all the time, and I don't want Jannik to get the career Grand Slam. He should wait a little bit longer. I want him to suffer a little bit because he's white.
Yeah, I certainly had a great time while I was in New York City, mostly because I was missing out on all these tennis updates. I didn't have to process them. I'm glad you're having fun, Oliver, but if I don't get to say Roll Tide, it's not really a sport in my book. However, I did enjoy being at the Met. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my field report, but Oliver, did you know that was my first time at the Metropolitan Opera?
You obviously don't listen to the episode, but we did set you up really well before you gave the field report, and we did say that it was your first time. So I'm just curious, like, you drove there from Chicago, which is weird, but great for you. Just can you tell us about like what it was like to be there, to see Lincoln Center, to walk past the fountain, whatever famous fountain where so many things happen in the movies, and like walking through those doors and then being like aggressively told where to go by the ushers, or by the security.
I did have that experience. Yeah. I did accidentally walk into the wrong line for will call, and I got an earful. But no, it was nice. I have been in the building before. I just haven't been able to make it into an opera until now. I don't get up to New York City all that often. And for whatever reason, every other time I've been in New York City has not been during the opera season. So it was nice to be in there. You know, you do feel a certain amount of importance and weight to going to the Metropolitan Opera. You know, we talk a lot, we spend a lot of time criticizing the Met here at Opera Box Score, I think for good reason a lot of the time. But when you go there, you really do get a sense that, oh yes, this is an institution in the way that you don't really see a lot in the U.S. anymore, at least in the operatic world. I was there on opening night, which meant that because I am from a good working class city like Chicago, I was underdressed compared to all the East Coasters. And there was a certain amount of energy there that I don't think I would often see in a lot of operatic productions. I don't want to talk too much about Innocence because I've already expounded on that in the last episode, other than to say it was great, really enjoyed it. But the experience of the Met itself was very interesting. I did go in, I was looking for signs of economic distress. I did see that some of the gold on the ceiling was flaking off a little bit in the auditorium. I don't know if I was in the wrong place, but it seemed like the Chagalls were not there. Maybe they've already sold them. So there was, I think, a certain energy of, I can't say whether they were understaffed or anything like that, but I do think that there were some signs that, you know, maybe the money isn't exactly where it should be, which is the impression I've had before when I've been in the building, seeing certain paintings being, you know, not as restored as they should be, not as obvious as they should be. But at the same time, there is definitely an audience there which feels different than a lot of places in the U.S. You know, just looking at, you know, even Lyric Opera Chicago's season, which we'll talk about pretty soon, you know, the amount of operas they put on, the culture of the opera feels different there. And the Lincoln Center itself has a very iconic facade in a way that before the show, I literally went and got a slice of New York pizza and sat on the fountain. It was still off for the season, and just ate it right there. And it felt very authentic, and the atmosphere felt very relaxed from an audience point of view, even though this is an opera that, you know, some people might say, oh, it's challenging, there's microtones in it, there's stuff like that. There was a sense that it was very natural to go and see this kind of opera here. Maybe that's a little bit more than you asked for in terms of my overall takes, but certainly as an opera influencer, I guess, I'm glad that I was able to finally go, so I'm no longer a poser. But the culture of the Met is something that you can feel when you go there, even though it's not something that me as an old Alabama boy can really easily access. It was really cool to see.
Well, there's a theme that we sort of touch upon here pretty regularly about opera as a place to gather. And what's great about Lincoln Center is that there is that fountain, and there is, you know, other venues adjacent. So you see people going to see some dance. You see people going to see like a chamber music concert. There's like the film, the fancy, art film house that's right there in Juilliard. There's Juilliard is right there. Yeah. And so there's something about that space that feels like, oh, it's maybe not just people going to the opera. It's a bunch of people who love the arts.
Well, even in the Met Auditorium itself, the actual auditorium is a little bit too small. Right? You know, it felt crowded in a way that you don't feel at, say, the Lyric Opera of Chicago. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I think that I had some organic interactions with folks in the audience whom I did not know that I wouldn't have ordinarily had. And again, some of that could just be me. I am, again, raised in Alabama, you know, you don't have a lot of access to these kinds of artistic institutions. So you are much more used to going not as a social event, but as a personal, private sort of engaging with the music, which is how I'm used to experiencing opera. But there's something about Lincoln Center which is more conducive to seeing other people and experiencing it with them, even though, like I said, I did feel a little underdressed.
Yeah. And there are like maybe 5 restaurants within a half block, from maybe even more than 5, within a half block from the Met, and some that are open specifically to take customers, to take audience members post-opera. And we just don't have that in Chicago. Chicago is sort of like is hostile towards the audience. It's like, get out, it's like, go home. And like when you leave the theater, there's no place to go. And for those of you who haven't been to Chicago, the Opera House is really on the river, but there's no access to the river from the Opera House. And it would be the perfect thing to create some kind of space where people can go like down to the river walk and like hang out and talk and have a drink.
There's a big trend. I mean, every single new Opera House design that we've seen in the past probably 20 years at this point, all the new opera houses in China, the one in, was it Hamburg? You see that there is a primacy put on exterior public spaces, making the opera house a part of the beating heart of whatever city it happens to be in. And I think that aesthetically, Lyric Opera of Chicago does fulfill that. It is an iconic building. You can recognize it from the front. You can recognize it from the back. I've seen like a lot of old photographs where people are walking past it, and it feels aesthetically like it should be a city center. But you're right, because of the lack of access, you have to kind of cross the river to get to a plaza where you might want to hang out, but you have to go over a bridge to do that, and you don't really see that many patrons actually doing that. And I think that the Lincoln Center layout is just much more conducive to hanging out afterwards and talking about the show, which I certainly did with some people that I knew and some people that I didn't, which was a lot of fun and not something I was necessarily expecting out of a Met Opera experience. Well, we've already been talking about it, but let's continue to talk some opera.
How about we root for the home team?
Last week, Lyric Opera of Chicago announced their 2026-27 season. The big headline is that there are 6 operas, but an additional opera, so a 7th opera, that 7th opera being performed in concert.
6.5.
6.5, yeah. The musical returns after a absence of a couple of seasons.
Yeah.
Maestro Enrique Mazzola, friend of the show, will conduct 5 shows, including the concert opera of Herodiade and the oratorio Haydn's Creation, plus Don Giovanni, Don Pasquale, and Traviata. We will break down the season now, beginning with the season opener, Don Giovanni. We've heard of it. This completes the company's, I think, accidental Da Ponte Mozart trilogy. We had Così this year, and that production of Figaro, which I don't like talking about, last year. This is the Robert Falls production, which is being remounted, and Robert Falls, who is a legend in Chicago theater scene, will return to direct. The cast features friend of the show Christian Van Horn as Don Giovanni. For 2 performances, Don Giovanni will be sung by friend of the show Kyle Kettleson. Friend of the show Manet Goloyan will be singing Donna Anna, and friend of the show Larry Brownlee will be singing Don Ottavio, not really known for his Ottavio. So
yeah,
not sure
an interesting choice.
I think this is a role debut for him. I'm not sure. And then the rest of the cast, I did not know. I will read their names because maybe they have found some people, some singers who you all know. Nina Solodovnikova singing Don Elvira. Tommaso Barrea as Leporello. Anna El Kashem as Erlina. And David Lee is Commendatore, and Ryan Opera Center alum Christopher Humbert Jr. is Mazzetto. Once again, conducted by Enrique Mazzola. Sort of a no-brainer as a season opener. I'm a little disappointed they didn't get Ryan Speedo Green to make his lyric debut as Don Giovanni, but we will get Ryan's...
He does come in later.
lyric opera debut very soon. The second show in the fall is Rhiannon Giddens and Michael Abels's Pulitzer Prize winning, or MacArthur Genius Grant. No, they won the Pulitzer. They won something.
They won something.
Yeah. Omar, which has now been produced a couple of times. It was produced at LA Opera and I think at San Francisco Opera.
I think it premiered at Spoleto, didn't it?
At Spoleto Festival, yeah.
Yeah.
They're bringing back Kaniza Shal as the stage director, but they are saying that she will create a new version of Omar for Lyric Opera's stage. Okay. I'm not sure if that means that the previous productions were too small to fit on Lyric stage, or if they're starting completely from scratch and she's doing something new with it. There is evidence of these things happening. For example, the Met is about to open their own Frida and Diego, abandoning the production that's been used by just about everybody else. They're creating their own production. So I don't know. I don't know if it means bigger and better or if it means something else. We don't know. It's a little bit vague.
I am excited to see the opera, though. I obviously had a lot of buzz when it first came out. This is going to be, I think, for me, if you're the new opera person, the weird opera guy of your friend group, this is the one that I think you're going to be really excited to see. Kind of nestled into a season of older favorites.
I mean, but Rhiannon Giddens and Michael Abels are very accessible, though.
Oh, for sure. Like, it's not like, I mean, I'm excited, but it's not going to be, it's not Stockhausen,
It's not even Sarajevo, for that matter. So.
I don't expect, Lyric Opera Chicago to cater directly to my taste, but I am very excited for Omar for a number of reasons. I believe the next one on the docket is going to be Don Pasquale.
Yeah, that's the last full opera before the winter break.
Yes.
Don Pasquale with bass Misha Kiria, or bass baritone Misha Kiria, who I've never heard of before. Mexican tenor Alberto Robert as Ernesto, once again, never heard of him. And our beloved Ying Fang as
who we definitely have
Norina.
heard of and are very excited about.
Yes, it will feature the production from Glyndebourne Festival, and there's plenty of production images of that production, and they will bring the original director for that production, Mariam Clément, to direct. Once again, Mazzola is conducting, and Ryan Opera Center alum and darling boy Ian Rucker. I hadn't had him on the show, but he sang Billy Budd at Aix-en-Provence last summer, and he sang Guglielmo this year at Lyric. He'll be back. Chicago crowd loves him, so that makes sense. I have opinions about Don Pasquale. I think I've shared before. I think it's one of the meanest operas in the standard canon.
Oh, for sure.
But Enrique Mazzola loves this show, and he said in the PR event that this is one of the operas he's conducted the most in his career. And he really feels like it's Donizetti's self-portrait. That's one way of thinking about it. Yeah.
I mean, he certainly I've actually had a separate conversation with him, not on this show, and he independently brought up, this is well before they announced the season. This was like 2 years ago at this point, how much he loves Don Pasquale. Yeah. He really does love it. So I'm excited to see his interpretation.
I love Ying Fang so much, and I dislike Norina so much. So it'll be interesting to see if she can
average out to a very middle of the road. Exactly. Then we get the chorus to get their paychecks for a couple different not productions. They're doing a Wagner concert. Yeah. It's called Myth and Music. It'll be overtures and choruses. I'll probably go because I love Wagner. Alexander Sadi will conduct.
It's a Wagner specialist apparently. Oh, and this will feature the debut of the brand new concert shell. They're calling it the David W. and Ort K. Carpenter concert shell, specifically designed acoustic shell, which is also accepts projections, apparently. Good for projecting onto. Yeah.
Thank goodness. I was worried. Yeah. So look forward to your, projections in your chorus evening. And speaking of choruses, they are going to be doing they're continuing their trend of doing some oratorio cantata sort of flavored things. They're doing Haydn's The Creation. Mazzola will be actually conducting that. We're going to have Erin Morley, which will be fun.
Yeah, that's her debut.
Yeah. David Portillo and Michael Samuel will be performing in that. I mean, I'm kind of neither here nor there on Haydn most of the time, except for his what was it, Voyage to the Moon, whatever that one is. That one's weird. I like that one. But I'll go see it.
It's fine. I mean, it's great, but it's not operatic in any way.
It really intrigues me. Every time they do one of these unstaged oratorios or cantatas, they always pick something that I'm like, oh, really? I mean, last season's Carmina Burana made sense. It's a crowd pleaser. It's big. You need big dramatic forces to pull it off. Yeah. And Haydn, I'm like, okay.
Well, the year before they did Mozart Requiem with additional Mozart, I think. Thamos, King of Egypt or whatever. And I didn't see it. I don't know. Did you see it?
No, I didn't. Okay. I mean, I think that one made some sense because the Lacrimosa was really trending on TikTok that season. Yeah. But like, I mean, maybe I'm missing the creation side of the viral TikTok sounds, but we'll see. I'm sure it'll be great.
So creation is in January, and that sort of is coming out of the winter break. So Lyric Opera shares a space where it rents their space out to the Joffrey Ballet. Yeah. So Joffrey is probably running in season, finishing up their Nutcracker and doing something else. And they have another concert before Full Stage Opera returns, and that is Herodiade, Massenet's Herodiade. And when I spoke to Enrique Mazzola, both for my regular job and for the podcast, I learned that he's crazy about grand French opera. Yeah. And nobody wants to take a chance on it in the US because it's repertoire that nobody does, and it's so expensive, and you need Wagner-sized orchestras, and sometimes you need church bells and organs and children's choirs to put these things on. It's just like,
if it's not Les Troyens, no one's doing it this side of the pond.
So Herodiade is, I assume, a passion project for Mazzola, and they're giving him 3 chances to perform this in concert.
To sell it.
Yeah. Clémentine Margen as Herodiade, Federico Lombardi as Salome, Piero Preti as Jean, the tenor role, and Igor Golvatenko as Herod, and Le Bou making his lyric debut as Fanuel. Enrique says that this opera has, I wrote it down, something about Wagner and French. Let's see. It is it's between the velvet of the French style and the power of Wagner's harmonic language.
I am excited that this is being done. I have to admit, I was a little disappointed when I found out it was just a concert version. But I do understand why they don't want to risk, paying for sets. But I am interested to hear it. It's one I've heard just clips of, and I've not sat down and seen the whole thing. And, I think Massenet is such an interesting composer because he changed styles every 5 seconds. Yeah. And I'm excited to see this side of him, And then we go from February into March with Ariadne auf Naxos, which I am very excited about. No reservations whatsoever. We have Oksana Liniv conducting, actually. I'm not sure if this is her first.
That is her debut. It's her debut.
Very excited to hear her. She's been making waves for the past, 5-6 years across Europe, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, she's conducting Eugene Onegin at the Met next month, in May. Yeah. Leah Hawkins is making her debut as Ariadne / prima donna. I heard her sing Tosca at Santa Fe a couple years ago. Erin Morley in one of her signature roles, Zerbinetta. Friend of the show, Erin Morley. Also friend of the show, Sam Hankey as the composer, Samantha Hankey. And friend of the show, Russell Thomas, I think making his role debut as Bacchus. Friend of the show, Zachary Nelson as the music master. I'm excited. I love this opera. The production is a revival of the John Cox production with the revival director, conducted by, once again, Oksana Liniv. Then we get 11 performances of Traviata. I'm not kidding you. That's like they don't do shows 11 times except things like Traviata.
They're betting on it. It's a warhorse.
Conducted by Mazzola. The Aaron Arbus production that Lyric has had before, making her lyric debut as Violetta, as Yaritza Velis, making his lyric debut as Alfredo as the Armenian tenor Liparit Avetesian. And the guy who won all the competitions, the Mongolian baritone Amartuvshin Enkbat as Georgia Germain, apparently has an incredible Verdi baritone voice, and I've never heard him sing live, so I'm excited. Sort of a hard cast to talk about for people who are not reading these names all the time. I didn't even do that great with them, but I can't wait to hear what ads they sell to WBEZ here in Chicago and hear those NPR announcers try to say all these names.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they're La Traviata, I think, is a good opportunity to introduce your audience to singers who have not been in before, that are not necessarily in the popular consciousness, at least in this area. So I'm excited to see it. I mean, it's hard to get me excited for La Traviata, but this is a good way to do it. And then we have in April, we're doing a little bit of Susanna, not Susanna.
Yeah.
Carlisle Floyd. I mean, I really like Susanna. I know
Hall of Famer Carl Floyd.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And here's where we get Ryan Speedo Green as the Reverend Olin Blitch.
Yep.
And Patricia Racette actually will be directing this one, I believe.
Yeah,
is that correct?
she's making her debut as a stage director. She's sung at Lyric Opera before, but
of course.
This is her stage directing debut with Daniela Candilari, and Daniela and Patricia are paired at Opera Theater St. Louis, where Patricia took on the artistic director role recently, and Daniela Candilari is the music director there. So it's nice to see them bring that team to Chicago. Interestingly, they did Susanna at Opera Theater St. Louis a couple seasons ago with Janai Brugger as Susanna, but Chicago will enjoy Gabriela Reyes as Susanna. Tenor Matthew Cairns making his lyric debut as Sam. And friend of the show, Frederick Ballantyne, will sing Little Bat, also making his lyric opera debut. I love this show. I feel like it's a great show for college students. And so because it is, I feel like I've seen it many times in college productions. It'd be nice to see it in a adult production. I saw it at Lyric Opera when Sandra Repanovsky made her debut in that role, and Renee Fleming actually made her lyric debut in that role too. So some great singers to live up to for Gabriela Reyes. Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited to hear her in the role. I think she'll be great. And speaking of Sandra Repanovsky, we're going to be treated to a concert with her in April and May, April 30th and May 2nd. Usually I don't get too pumped for these, singers in concert at the Lyric, but not only do we have Sandra Radvanovsky, who I love, we also have Seok-jung Baek singing as well, who we were all charmed by in Cavalleria Rusticana as Toridu. Really, kind of stealing every single moment he was in.
Yeah,
so
I'm
kind of excited for this one.
To put it plainly, he sings with a very Italianate style, and the voice is gorgeous and has thrust where you want it to have thrust. And that's a lot for people who don't really understand singer talk. But if you do understand singer talk, there's some coded language I'm using here because sometimes singers don't offer these things. And it's nice to have somebody who's like delivering the full package of what this music can be. And
it's a really like idiomatic voice,
exactly.
Like it's exactly what you want to hear when you hear that kind of repertoire. And I'm really excited to hear him, and I'm glad that he made enough of a splash to for them to pair him up with Sandra Radvanovsky,
who makes a lot of noise. So you need a tenor
exactly.
that can.
And then, of course, we have the summer musical, the return of the great summer musical, Frank Lesser's Guys and Dolls. And you know what? Speaking of college, Oliver, I was actually Nathan Detroit in my college's production of Guys and Dolls. So I know and love this show. But I do want to say we do have a friend of the show directing, Francesca Zambello, directing, which will be a lot of fun, I'm sure. I think, when it comes to the Lyric Opera of Chicago's summer musicals, much like their oratorio selection, I'm always a little bit, at what they pick. I am so deep in the opera world. I sometimes am surprised by what musical people are excited about. And I would love to know if you are a musical person. We unfortunately don't have Matt and Ashley on the show. Are you excited about Guys and Dolls at the Lyric Opera Chicago? I'm excited for Francesca Zambello, but are you excited for this actual show? Because, this is always their big money maker. This is how they pay for the rest of the season, is to do a big crowd pleasing musical. And I hope Guys and Dolls is it.
Free throw.
Last month, countertenor Randall Scotting released his fourth solo album, Divine Impresario, the third collaboration with the Academy of Ancient Music, conducted by Lawrence Cummings. This album, once again, shows the scholarship of Randall Scotting. He does have a PhD in musicology.
Ooh.
I forget exactly what his dissertation was in. I didn't ask, but he did the research on this castrato Nicolini and found music associated with Nicolini, stuff that was written for him or stuff that he performed that was in the canon at the time. And it's a lot of world premiere recordings with a very stylish band. Before we dive into this free throw on Divine Impresario, we'll hear one of the arias from it called Mostro Crudel by Riccardo Broschi. Returning to Opera Box Score is countertenor Randall Scotting. Welcome back.
Hey,
well,
happy to be here.
We just recorded an interview for my other job because you have a brand new album. This one comes out at the end of March, so just in a few weeks. This one is called Divine Impresario, and it continues your, now I guess, tradition of just digging up the most random stuff.
Yeah, I do a deep dive and I find some great things. For that album, I looked at so many manuscripts just to filter through it all to find the really good stuff that I wanted to record. I spent probably 6 months just, researching, finding the scores, deciding what I wanted to include, and then finding these things that I thought really were little masterpieces.
So we were just talking about how this music, you can get the forces together to record it, but to perform it in a concert is tricky, I guess.
Yeah, it's just, I think, as with everything, it comes down to budget largely. These are big orchestras for Baroque standards, and it's just expensive. So it's hard to get, venues, especially now in this day and age with everything the way that it is, with arts funding. And I realized something the other day. I realized if the Met had 25 productions in their season and they've gone down to 18, possibly 17, that's a huge cut in their season. And if that's indicative of what's happening everywhere, it's just a really hard time to be presenting opera, period. And then on top of that, to be trying to present these rare and unusual things that people are curious about, but I feel like it's far more common now to have the standard things be programmed. So it's a little bit just on the outskirts of what I think programmers are looking for, unfortunately, because it's amazing music and it should be heard. But we're able to do the recordings and at least get those out there. And then I am working on trying to line up some concerts with the Academy of Ancient Music and things. They're pitching it around, but getting their schedules to line up is another tricky thing too. They're just all such great musicians and so busy in lots of different ways, teaching and performing with different groups and everything. So getting everyone together for a few days to be able to rehearse and perform is a challenge.
Well, there's lots of rarities on Divine Impresario, a lot of recorded for the first time tracks, but you have this aria from a porpora opera called Si Face,
which is a real banger. I think we'll probably add some of it to this podcast. And I guess like the horns come out or something, like natural horns in this aria. Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah, it's in that vein of like a hunting aria, although this one is a ship at sea metaphor. But he wanted to be rousing and boisterous, so he included a couple horns. And it's probably one of the hardest arias I've ever sung. It's just so many notes, and it's a lot of fun. It's great, but it is a challenge for sure. So I was really happy with how it turned out.
In the U.S., getting the horns on your recording is an expensive venture. Like, they don't have long calls. You gotta get.
It's the one thing that they're on in the. I mean, there just wasn't a lot written for Nicolini that had horns. I'd love to have included more arias like that one, but this was sort of the one that I found with that kind of quality. I wanted something with horns, and crazy coloratura. And there's a couple. Venti Turbini by Handel. There's a very challenging coloratura also, but it's a smaller instrumentation. So I think this one's particularly rousing.
Well, another project that we didn't get a chance to talk about was your concept album, Infinite Refrain, which is very gay. Makes it perfect.
So gay. Wonderfully gay.
Yeah. So you brought on a tenor, Jorge Navarro Colorado, and you sing like some Monteverdi duets, like the finale of Popea as tenor and countertenor. But there's this one duet on there that like it's just stunning. And I think we'll probably close the show with it today. It's by a composer named Boretti. And you said it was about Hercules and who?
Theseus, yeah. So Theseus is trapped in the underworld, and he's gone over the river Styx, which erases your memory, so you don't really know what's going on or remember anything
Theseus,
of your
like
past life.
Ariadne's Theseus?
Yeah, the one.
So he's gay too? Is he just like poly, or what's his deal?
I don't even know. But in this telling, definitely, because it's more than just they're good friends. I mean, it's very clear. They say, Hercules goes down, he saves Theseus and grabs his hand, and Theseus is like, who are you? What's going on? I don't know. I don't remember anything. So Hercules says, it's fine. I've got you. Come with me. Stop talking. We got to get out of here. And they exit Hades hand in hand, singing about how much they love each other, basically, and how they want each other's lives to sort of intertwine, and one exists for the other. It's a very, very sweet text. And every Venetian in that opera house knew what that was. You know, I feel like it seems radical and kind of scandalous to perform it now, but they didn't have all of this sort of baggage at that particular moment, at least in opera in Venice. And so it was maybe somewhat coded or kind of shaded, but it was very much there. And everybody would have known that these two men were lovers. And I was so thrilled when I came across that duet. I found it the perfect thing to include on the album. I was looking for, so the Portimuro's on there. I was looking for another just really sensuous love duet, unknown. And this fits the bill.
Well, it's so good. And we're about to hear it. But since you seem to bring the scholarship about this, we should add a little more nuance to this topic. You have studied Seicento Venetian opera. And at least I know that things like La Callisto weren't that successful, as successful as Cavalli was, but maybe Callisto went a little too far with like the lesbian stuff. Or maybe it was the bestiality. I don't know what was less acceptable.
Hard to say. Yeah, but then that's a good, so the Eliogabalo, I've done that a couple times, Cavalli, and that was, it never was premiered because it was too scandalous about this, Roman emperor who wanted to have a sex change, is what people say, and he was super slutty and just all, he was very scandalous, and so then all of that, of course, was like, veiled way referencing the people that were in charge, and so they weren't very happy about that, and it got yanked before it got premiered, so it didn't actually premiere until modern times. And there's a lot there, a lot of scandal going on in 17th century Venice.
A duet from Giovanni Antonio Boretti's opera Ercole in Tebe, an opera about Hercules, Se per te, with tenor Jorge Navarro Colorado, and once again, the Academy of Ancient Music, conducted by Lawrence Cummings. That selection from Randall Scotting's previous album of homosexuality in the Seicento, called Infinite Refrain. And in the middle of our conversation, we heard an aria by Porpora called Come Nave in Mezzo all'Onda. That one comes from the most recent album, Divine Impresario. Once again, Divine Impresario is out now for you to purchase or stream wherever you stream music. My thanks to Randall Scotting for returning to the OBS.
While you are listening to beautiful music and beautiful conversation with two very handsome podcast hosts, help us spread the word about Opera Box Score by giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And if you've got an extra moment or two, why not write us a review as well? Tell a friend, tell an enemy. Let's make sure they're listening to the OBS so we can continue to bring you the latest in breaking opera news, which we cover in the 2-minute drill.
This just in, the 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
The Guardian reports that the Royal Ballet and Opera has profited from the dismissive comments made by Timothée Chalamet. Rather than issuing a formal rebuke, the company's playful online retort drew millions of engagements and led to an immediate rise in ticket sales, prompting other arts groups to similarly turn the controversy into promotional campaigns.
Maison Perrier-Jouët has been named the official champagne of the Metropolitan Opera under a 5-year agreement, the Met's first partnership of that kind. The collaboration introduces new hospitality experiences, including a redesigned orchestra bar, expanded champagne service throughout the venue, and private parterre box offerings. The partnership also supports the Met's Young Associates program with exclusive events and experiences.
New York City Opera's initiative to showcase new grand operas by American composers, Vox, is back. Previously discontinued after NYCO's bankruptcy, Vox has been revived to provide large-scale development opportunities for opera creators. Led by Beth Morrison and Ted Sperling, the program will present 4 20 to 30-minute works in progress in concert format with full orchestra, chorus, and soloists. Performances are scheduled for April 2027 at PAC NYC, with work submissions opening next month and closing in August. Learn more at the link on the webpage for this episode at operaboxscore.com.
Jackie Chan, yes, that Jackie Chan, will direct his first ever opera, Puccini's Turandot, opening the 72nd Puccini Festival in Lucca this summer. The production will incorporate martial arts, naturally, into the opera's storytelling, and features a cast including Anna Perozzi, Roberto Alagna, and Alexandra Kurzak.
In major awards news, Opera America has announced the recipients of a $100,000 grant, split 8 ways, as part of their Opera Grants for Women Composers program. Congratulations to Lila Blue, Catherine Brookman, Suzanne Farrin, Danielle Jagelski, Ji Young Ko, Haley McAvoy, Jillian Ray Perry, and Diana Wharton Sonar, all of which are invited to be on the show if you compose a great opera.
25-year-old Canadian soprano Alexa Frankian has been named the 2026 recipient of the Igor Gorin Memorial Award for demonstrating outstanding promise and artistry in her field. Plus, English National Opera took home Best New Opera Production for Dead Man Walking at the Olivier Awards.
Boston Early Music Festival has announced the postponement of their upcoming concert featuring Philippe Jarouski and Ensemble Artiserse due to complications associated with the securing of a work visa. Despite extraordinary efforts, the ensemble's application has been continuously delayed, and BEMF has determined that the proper paperwork will not be secured in time. BEMF is working with Jarouski's management to reschedule the performance for the 27-28 season.
In trade news, friend of the show Sandra Radvanovsky, remember her, has been named Artistic Advisor at Lyric Opera of Chicago for the next 5 seasons. Meanwhile, Hanover State Opera has appointed Italian conductor Francesco Angelico to the position of General Music Director, succeeding Stefan Silius.
And on this day, April 16th, first performances include Handel's Alcina at Covent Garden in 1735, Meyerbeer's Le Prophète at Paris Opera in 1849, and the U.S. premiere of Verdi's Otello at the Academy of Music in New York. April 16th also features the birthdays of German baritone Robert von Scheidt, who created roles in operas by Schrecker and Eck. He was born in 1879. Sardinian soprano Carmen Mellis was born this day in 1885. English mezzo-soprano and actress Constance Shacklock was born this day in 1913. American mezzo-soprano Carol Bryce was born in Sedalia, North Carolina this day in 1918. Australian soprano Marie Collier was born this day in Melbourne in 1927. And happy birthday to legendary baritone Leo Nucci, born this day in Bologna in 1942.
And that's your 2-minute drill.
Fanciulla piangi, scorrer vale pianto sul mio cor.
A little bit of Leo Nucci, the birthday boy, singing the Act 2 duet with Gilda, played by Sumi Jo, from Teatro Cologne in 1997. Leo Nucci is one of those baritones who just made it on all the recordings, and we definitely heard how his voice ripened over the years. I was thinking about Rigoletto earlier today because I love June Anderson, and thinking about what are my favorite June Anderson recordings, and it made me think that Rigoletto with, I think it's Schulte and Pavarotti and Shirley Verrett and Leo Nucci as Rigoletto and June Anderson as Gilda. I really like that recording despite how busted everybody sounds. I mean, there's that Pavarotti recording when he's as fresh as a daisy singing with Joan Sutherland and Cheryl Milnes, which is the vocalism on that album is just impossibly good. But Pavarotti, I think, really grew into the sliminess of the Duke for the next recording with June Anderson. And June Anderson was in magnificent tone and sounds very, virginal and maiden-like, whereas Joan Sutherland, even when she was young, always sounded a little bit old,
Fully mature voice,
Yeah. So I like this Leo Nucci recording. He's Rigoletto in that recording, as I said. And I've always been a fan of Leo Nucci. So happy birthday. That wasn't much of a tribute.
Well, you know who I'm a fan of? Philippe Jaroussky. But
Jaroussky.
unfortunately, Jaroussky, I'm not enough of a fan to pronounce his name correctly, but luckily Oliver's here to help me out. Oliver, you're probably in mourning over this because you're a big Banff guy.
I am. Well, this was just a concert. It wasn't part of their festival, their summer festival. This is just part of their concert series. So it is a bummer that this happens. But I wonder if this has to do with like American visas, you know?
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, every couple of weeks we hear about another performer who's not coming to the U.S. either by choice or involuntarily. I don't think they've...
well, he's not Latino, so he's fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain equal opportunity xenophobia, which I do think is happening in the opera world. But, we don't have a Kennedy Center anymore, so, who who needs them? What we do have, though, is the return of Vox, which I'm actually very excited about. This was a program that I believe shut down back in 2012, along with New York City Opera, RIP. And this was very much an initiative that I think, New York City Opera was very much about, introducing new American operas to the world. And this is much more of a workshop along the lines of like the Vanguard initiative that we have here in Chicago, where you're not necessarily seeing a final product. You're seeing scenes, chunks of large-scale operas that are in process. And I think that is so, so, so important, particularly for younger composers. We've talked at length, especially when we talk about the Vanguard initiative, how a lot of younger composers really just don't get the experience anymore of composing operatically. You don't necessarily even get a really concentrated lessons on how to compose for the voice, at least in an operatic way. And I think there's been a real push in the last 10 years or so, not just from the Vanguard Initiative, but from other programs as well, really trying to...
The Vanguard Initiative being Chicago Opera Theater's...
really trying to like fill in this gap. And I think you can really hear the difference. I feel like increasingly I'm starting to hear more and more new opera recordings that sound like the composers actually know how to write for the voice.
It's not just writing for the voice. It's also knowing how to deal with orchestration and dealing with choruses and because so many of these operas that are being composed that get put on by storefront companies, I think they're writing with a piano and maybe a string quartet in mind. They don't, what was that opera everybody was doing? The transgender opera.
As one.
And like, I don't think we'll ever get a fully orchestrated version of that, because I don't know if that opera's in vogue anymore, but it'd be great for some of these composers who show promise to have a chance to write for the full forces that will actually make an opera producible by an opera company.
Yeah, and hopefully it leads to more commissions down the line, more money, maybe money from Big Champagne, which the Met is turning to. for presumably, their deal seems to be falling through with Saudi Arabia, so they're going out to Maison Perrier Jouet. Again, another French name I can't fully pronounce. I also know zero about champagne, but this is, this kind of makes sense to me. This is a partnership that makes us, some semblance of sense. Now that I've been to the Metropolitan Opera, brag.
It's on brand. It just feels so exclusive, and like everybody thinks about like expensive things, at the opera. Why can't they also come up with like a Red Bull partnership or something like that? To stay awake for the last act of Tristan.
What was it? There was the New York Times article a few weeks ago all about how people stayed awake for the entirety of Tristan, and there was a guy who brought like Zinn gum. Where's our Zinn tie-in at the Metropolitan Opera? Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything for this week, but I think we want one more roast of Timothée Chalamet for the road, Oliver.
I'm not going to do it. You go for it. I love him. I'm mad at him. He deserves a spanking, but I don't want to roast him.
Perhaps a spanking with a tennis paddle. Let's wrap this show up.
Good call. Bad call. on Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call. That's how we end the show. I'm going to start with, Oliver Camacho.
I went to a season preview event for Des Moines Metro Opera for Chicago audiences, and I heard their Roxana for their upcoming production of King Roger. We already know that I'm crazy about Christopher Sokolowski, who is singing the shepherd in King Roger, and I will go see it just to be near him. But the Roxana, her name is Lydia Katarina, and man, stunning voice. I cannot wait. She actually previewed by singing Roxana's aria. I cannot wait to hear her sing this whole role. Gorgeous. If anybody who knows Lydia, let her know that her name was said favorably by the Oliver Camacho.
The Oliver Camacho has said your name favorably. That's what we all want in this industry. Speaking of saying things favorably, I have a big recommendation in the form of an oratorio recording. It came out a couple of weeks ago now, but I have not been on the show to recommend it, and I'm going to correct that now. This is a piece, a new oratorio called La Passione di Gesù by Leonardo Garcia Alarcón, who is better known as the head conductor of Capella Mediterranea, which is a more or less period performance ensemble who I like a lot. They have a really good recording of Monteverdi's L'Orfeo, among other things. But this is his first major work that he actually composed. And it is this wild synthesis of period instruments, modern music styles. He's from Argentina, I believe, so there's quite a lot of tango in there. And this is one of those recordings. It's on the Alpha label, so you know it's going to sound pretty good from a sonic perspective. But every part of this oratorio has kind of blown my mind a little bit, and I think part of it's just because it lands in that sweet spot of new music and old music. Plus, it's based on like an old Gnostic gospel that was rediscovered in the 1980s, which is another one of my special interests. And it is a great recording of a really, 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 really remarkable work. And if you like counterpoint based on the Dies Irae hymn, you're gonna love this one, which I know can't just be me. That is it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, get your voice heard, and find links to stuff we've talked about at our website, operaboxscore.com. That's also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to the OBS using the Support the Team tab. Your announcer is Norm Waddell. Your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho. And your audio editor is me. The executive producer of the OBS is George Cedarquist. For our guest, Randall Scotting, I'm Weston Williams, asking you to continue the conversation about opera as you offer exclusive events and experiences to white-collar Gen Z and millennials. We're back with an all-new show next week, plus you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more kung fu kalaf. Join us.